Good evening, you're now with me, Lorenzo Isaac, for Tvs Nightline. Here are the headlines for tonight. Indonesia's Mount Ibu erupts again, spews huge ash tower. LHDN to collect 7.6 billion ringgit in taxes. Elderly Care Action Plan ready by July. A volcano in eastern Indonesia erupted again on Monday, spewing a huge ash tower more than 5 kilometers into the sky. No damage or casualties were immediately reported, but images showed a column of ash soaring into the sky on Halmahera Island on North Maluku province. Indonesia's geology agency urged nearby residents to wear face masks and glasses when going outdoors to protect against falling volcanic ash. The volcano erupted on Saturday on a smaller scale, spewing lava, belching ash several kilometers into the night sky and causing lightning. The alert level remained at the second highest of a 4-tiered system after authorities raised it last week, with an exclusion zone between 3 and 5 kilometers around the volcano's crater. Ibu is one of Indonesia's most active volcanoes, erupting more than 21,000 times last year. ringgit 7.6 billion tax revenue will be collected from Sarawak by the Inland Revenue Board of Malaysia LHDN, which reflects a positive growth in Sarawakians' income. Last year's tax collection, according to its CEO, Dr. Abu Tariq Jamaluddin, has a difference of almost 8 billion ringgit, which amounted to 6.8 billion ringgit. As such, he expects the amount to increase ever so slightly every year due to how the state is strategically being developed.
Juran memang sentiasa meningkat. Seperti yang kita maklum, last year they managed to collect 6.8. Tahun ni pun dia bertambah. Setiap tahun dia memang akan terus meningkat. Sehingga selaras dengan perkembangan ekonomi di negeri Sarawak juga. So bila ekonomi mula berkembang, so kutipan yang kita jangkakan juga akan berkembang.
He spoke to reporters after paying a courtesy call to the Sarawak's Premier, Dato' Patinggi Tan Sri Abang Johari Tun Obeng, at his office here at the Sarawak State Legislative Assembly Dune Building earlier today. Meanwhile, he reiterated that monitoring efforts will be strengthened to improve compliance with taxpayers through consistent cooperation with state agencies. According to him, the percentage of taxpayers has not yet reached a satisfactory level based on the annual reports and declarations submitted.
The Malaysian Care Industry Action Plan, aimed at producing professional carers involved in looking after the elderly, persons with disabilities (OKU) and children, is expected to be ready in July. Minister for Women, Family and Community Development, Dato' Sri Nancy Shukri, said her ministry is aware of the need to make caring for this group a professional career, especially in facing the challenge of becoming an aging nation by 2030.
She said initiatives to empower the said industry are included in the Malaysia Madani Strategic Framework. It is a key indicator that must be achieved by her ministry as a comprehensive approach to address Malaysia's aging nation by 2030. Nancy said this in a speech when officiating the launch of the Malaysian Care Industry Action Plan Development Lab, which, among others, aims to identify challenges in implementing the care industry in Malaysia. In line with the initiatives of the care industry, she said the ministry would also empower the role of the Department of Social Welfare as the leading agency for the care and community service sector by developing more national occupational skill standards, NOSS, particularly to cater to the groups that are in need. Additionally, the National Population and Family Development Board, LPPKN, and the Social Institute of Malaysia, ISM, will further intensify training and certification of the mama care postmortem maternal care professions and also the childcare course of the Childcare Centre, TASCA caregivers. Later, she revealed that her ministry aims to produce 385 skilled trainees with the technical know-how in dealing with the elderly, children, and OKUs. She also welcomed the participation of men to be trained as skilled carers, since there is only a small number of them compared to the need for this group of carers.
Water demand in 2030 is projected to rise by 2,400 million litres per day MLD compared to the current 2,060 MLD based on the Sarawak Water Supply and Water Grid Master Plan. State Minister of Utilities and Telecommunications Datuk Seri Julaihi Narawi said to ensure adequate water reserve margins, Sarawak will need at least 20% of the existing capacity of water treatment plants.
Pada masa sekarang, beberapa loji rawatan air utama sedang beroperasi pada kadar reserve margin yang rendah seperti loji rawatan air Batu Kitang di Kuching. Reserve marginnya adalah pada kadar 12% sahaja, manakala loji rawatan air Salim di Sibu, kadar reserve marginnya hanyalah 1% sahaja. Bagi memastikan kita mempunyai reserve margin air yang mencukupi, kita hendaklah mempunyai reserve margin air pada kadar sekurang-kurangnya 20% daripada kapasiti loji rawatan air. Oleh itu, beberapa projek utama yang kritikal sedang dan perlu dilaksanakan segera bagi memenuhi permintaan air yang dijangka terus meningkat.
He said this in his ministry's winding up speech at the Sarawak State Legislative Assembly, Dun, earlier today. Meanwhile, for the Batu Kitang Water Treatment Plant, Plant 2 upgrading project that is scheduled for completion in the third quarter of this year, Julaihi said the plant's output capacity could be up to 868 MLD compared to the current 764 MLD output capacity.
Projek menaik taraf kapasiti loji rawatan air Batu Kitang Loji 4 dengan penambahan 100 juta liter air sehari yang akan meningkatkan jumlah keseluruhan kapasiti pengeluaran loji kepada 968 juta liter sehari menjelang suku keempat tahun 2026.
The implementation of the water supply grid program, especially in focal areas, has had a positive impact in addressing the serious water supply issues in rural areas of Sarawak. Minister of the Utility and Telecommunications, Datuk Seri Julaihi Narawi, revealed that 259 projects, or 85%, have been completed to date, while 35 projects are under construction. Meanwhile, the remainder 10 projects are still in planning stages.
Inisiatif tersebut memberi impak yang ketara dalam menangani masalah bekalan air yang serius, terutamanya di kawasan dua bandar di seluruh Sarawak. Program ini juga telah membantu melonjakkan liputan bekalan air terutama di kawasan dua bandar, iaitu daripada 61.9% pada tahun 2018 meningkat kepada 70.5% setakat ini. Ini menjadikan liputan bekalan air seluruh Sarawak sehingga kini adalah 85.4%.
Sarawak has allocated 4 billion ringgit for the implementation of the water supply grid program, involving 304 water supply projects for focal areas. The ministry asserted that it will continue to strive towards achieving full water supply coverage in Sarawak by 2030, with an estimated allocations of 20 billion ringgit, as announced in the Dun sitting.
More in-depth study needed on providing free tertiary education at state-owned higher learning institutions. Several key points that should be scrutinized include costs, course offerings, and so forth. According to the Minister of Education, Innovation and Talent Development Sarawak, Datuk Sri Roland Sagawi, with sufficient study, it may be implemented even before 2026, the original timeline for the policy to take effect.
We also have to make projections as to what will be our financial position during certain years. We have to look at our reserves and all that. We have to look at how much actually tertiary education costs. And when you talk about tertiary education, you're not just looking at the tuition fees. You also have to look at the infrastructure. You have to see how many academicians, you have to employ, how much infrastructure that are available in our institutions, and of course for the students.
The first unit of Sarawak's hydrogen-powered autonomous rapid transit ART smart tram is expected to arrive in Sarawak by the third quarter Q3 of this year. Sarawak Transport Minister Datuk Sri Lee Kim Shin said the finalized version of the smart tram comes with some improvements involving its front design and outer colour that symbolizes the Sarawak flag.
Kita ART kita, saya terus sebut, kita the final version of ART, yang itu kita ada tukar dia reka bentuk sedikit, dia improvement of the ART. Jadi now the manufacturing plant in China, we'll go there and check and do a test drive in China. Ya, after sudah siap, kita akan periksa juga, akan cuba juga. Kalau we are satisfied, happy, then we go ship to Sarawak. Then Sarawak, then we'll do the assembly here in Sarawak.
Earlier during the State Assembly sitting, Lee said the ground foundation work for the Rumbus Depot as the central hub for ART operations and administration is currently ongoing and is expected to be completed also by Q3 of this year. As of April 2024, the overall actual progress of the Kuching Urban Transportation System, KUTS Phase 1, stands at 20.65%, inclusive of the consultancy works, studies and physical works. Other infrastructure works tender under the KUTS Phase 1 project is for the construction of the Rumbus Depot and associated works, which include mechanical and infrastructure workshops, hydrogen refueling facilities, a test track, and an operations control center.
Embracing hydrogen as a sustainable energy source within the Kuching Urban Transportation System KUTS project marks a pivotal initiative in revolutionizing Sarawak's transportation sector. Minister of Transport Sarawak Datuk Sri Lee Kim Shin emphasized that the incorporation of hydrogen-powered vehicles into KUTS represents a concrete stride towards fostering eco-friendly mobility within urban areas.
In addition to hydrogen, we are also exploring other innovative solutions to make our transport sector more sustainable.
Lee said this in his winding up speech. Initiatives like promoting electric vehicles, improving public transport infrastructure, and deploying smart mobility solutions all contribute to the ministry's comprehensive strategy. Moreover, his ministry is currently spearheading initiatives within the riverine transport sector to shift towards environmentally friendly vessels, exploring options such as hydrogen or electric-powered propulsion systems. With such achievement, Sarawak's endeavours have played a pivotal role in earning Malaysia's recognition for its strides in energy transition, positioning the nation at the forefront of Southeast Asia. This distinction was underscored in the World Economic Forum's Energy Transition Index 2023.
On a national level, Sarawak has contributed to Malaysia's recognitions for its strides in energy transition, ranking as the leading country in Southeast Asia, according to the Energy Transition Index 2023 by the World Economic Forum.
Sarawak showcases its political will in drawing more foreign investments for its economy. This can be seen in its assertive approach in its business pitches, especially from American-based companies. According to the United States U.S. Ambassador to Malaysia, Edgar D. Kagan, Sarawak is leveraging its abundant hydroelectric resources as a key selling point, emphasizing the potential for significant expansion in renewable energy sectors.
Sarawak is clearly very eager to attract investment, and I think has a very assertive approach to try and pitch itself to foreign investors, including to American companies. And I think that's interesting in and of itself. I think on energy, I think the key factor is Sarawak has a great deal of renewable energy in the form of hydro, and that there's also the potential to expand significantly in other areas as well. And this is something that is important for companies as they try and meet their own net zero commitments.
Kagan further stated the state government, backed by Malaysia's national interests, is actively promoting these opportunities, highlighting the region's readiness to support sustainable investment.
In the end, companies have to make their own decisions for their own reasons. And so, we can encourage them, we can tell them what the opportunities are, but they'll have to make their own decisions. But I think the message that we're delivering is go see what is happening in Malaysia, go see what's happening in Sarawak.
The ambassador arrived in Kuching on May 13th for a 2-day official visit. Today, Kagan and his entourage visited the Borneo Culture Museum, followed by a trip to Semenggol Wildlife Centre. Tomorrow, the ambassador will be making a courtesy call on Sarawak Premier, Dato' Patinggi Tan Sri Abang Johari Tun Openg, at Dun, Sarawak, and will fly back to Kuala Lumpur by evening of the same day.
At the same time, Kagan described the recent passing of Senate President Datuk Mutang Tagaw as a great loss, not only for Sarawak, but also for Malaysia. Reflecting on shared memories, Kagan recounted his admiration for Mutang's dedication to parliamentary reform and his commitment to strengthening Malaysia's institutional frameworks, particularly in Sarawak. He further expressed condolences to the senator's family, hoping that they would stay strong in their moment of bereavement.
I wanted to just extend my condolences to the people of Sarawak and the people of Malaysia on the loss of the Senate President, Mutang Tinggal. I had the privilege of meeting him a few weeks ago, and I was struck both by his passion for the Parliament and parliamentary reform and strengthening the institutions of Parliament, but also his commitment to Malaysia and also his passion for Sarawak. It's a tremendous loss. I was able to tell his wife and his son how sorry I was when I saw them on Saturday, and I was deeply touched at their telling me how much the relationship with the United States, the impact the United States had had on his life, and how much that had shaped their lives. And so, again, I offer my sincerest condolences on a great loss to the people of Malaysia and the people of Sarawak, and obviously to his family as well.
Additionally, he highlighted Mutang's impactful relationship with the Peace Corps volunteers, especially Robert Pastor, a former volunteer who significantly influenced the deceased's educational and professional path. Kagan said this relationship not only endured for decades, but also exemplified the strong cultural and diplomatic ties between the United States and Malaysia.
I was particularly touched by his description of the impact that Peace Corps volunteers had on his life. And in particular, one person who I knew, the late Robert Pastor, who went on to he was a Peace Corps volunteer in Sarawak, and Datuk Mutang Tinggal knew him, and he helped, according to what I was told, what the Senate President told me, he helped really encourage him to follow his studies. But they remained friends for decades later. And Bob Pastor was someone who was an incredibly influential person in U.S. foreign policy as well, and was played a key role in the development of the Carter Center.
Mutang, 70, breathed his last at the National Heart Institute, Kuala Lumpur at 11:46 a.m. on Friday, May 10th. He had been undergoing treatment at the Heart Institute after falling ill during a working trip to Azerbaijan on May 6.
The body of the late Senate President Datuk Mutang Tagal was laid to rest at Ferry Park Memorial, Miri. The funeral procession arrived at around 2:15 p.m. where the casket was carried by 8 members of the Royal Malaysia Police (PDRM). The late Senate President's wife, Datin Ho Mei Lang, and their 3 children, Rining, Saran and Bian, were seen close by during the procession.
PDRM paid their final respects, and then family members placed flowers on the coffin before it was lowered at exactly 2:56 p.m. The burial ceremony took place after a morning service and a final tribute at the BEM Canada Hill Church. Mutang Tagal, 70, passed away at 11:46 a.m. at the National Heart Institute (IJN) due to heart complications on Friday. His body was later flown to Miri via the Royal Malaysian Air Force TUDM Charlie 130 Hercules aircraft after receiving final respects from the national leaders in Kuala Lumpur. As a Lun Bawang descendant, Mutang was the first Dayak community member to hold the position of Senate President. Apart from that, he was also a former Member of Parliament for Bukit Mas and President of the Orang Ulu Chamber of Commerce and Industry, OUCCI.
Gabungan Parti Sarawak GPS Secretary General Datuk Sri Alexander Nantalinggi expresses hope that the federal government will consider appointing a Sarawakian candidate to fill the position left vacant by the passing of the late Datuk Mutang Tagal. Nonetheless, Nanta stated that he defers the decision regarding the next Senate President to Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim and Yang di-Pertuan Agong His Majesty Sultan Ibrahim. He told reporters after attending the Mangkong Tiang House opening ceremony at Rumah Panjang Stewart Sabah on Monday. Tun Pehin Sri Dr. Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar assumed office as the 19th Senate President on June 19 in 2023 but tendered his resignation to assume the position of Sarawak Governor on a 4-year term effective January 26, 2024. Subsequently, Mutang, who succeeded Wan Junaidi as the 20th Senate President on February 19, passed away at the National Heart Institute in Kuala Lumpur on May 10. The Islamic education program in kindergartens under the Community Development Department KEMAS across the nation will receive additional enhancement through the introduction of a new learning module focused on the 40 hadith of Imam Al-Nawawi. MARA Chairman Datuk Dr. Ashraf Wajdi Dusuki said the new learning module is aimed at shaping the personality, character and morals of the Muslim community in this country from an early stage.
The instruction of the Hadith collection will initially commence at 4,145 chosen kindergartens this June, with plans for gradual expansion to encompass all 10,840 KEMAS kindergartens nationwide by next year. The new educational module will also utilize a concise and comprehensible book published by Dewan Bahasa dan Pustaka in partnership with KEMAS and University Sultan Zainal Abidin, UNISA. Ashraf also elaborated that the teachers participating in the initiative will undergo training on the new module, aligning with the KEMAS pre-Tahfiz kindergarten program conducted by the Ministry of Rural and Regional Development KKDW starting in 2024. He also conveyed his intention to suggest the implementation of a comparable module in more than 300 MARA institutions, encompassing MARA Junior Science Colleges and Giat MARA in the foreseeable future.
The government has given a green light for administering the diphtheria, tetanus and pertussis or DTaP vaccines to expecting mothers effective this year, and Health Minister Datuk Sri Dr. Zulkifli Ahmad highlighted that these vaccinations are intended to safeguard newborns against pertussis, commonly known as whooping cough.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the Immunize for Life Program Technical Committee, Professor Datuk Dr. Zulkifli Ismail, emphasized that administering DTaP vaccinations to pregnant mothers would shield their unborn babies from whooping cough, which is seen as a crucial step if they are unvaccinated or miss the vaccination window. He stressed the importance of ensuring immunity in babies before they reach 3 months of age, proposing the administration of 1 dose of DTaP vaccination to pregnant mothers during their 3rd trimester, ideally between 27 to 32 weeks of pregnancy. At the same time, the health minister also mentioned that alongside the DTaP vaccine, the government is contemplating adding the influenza vaccine to the National Immunization Program, NIP, particularly targeting the elderly population. He continued mentioning that the ministry is currently deliberating on this matter, recognizing the heightened vulnerability of the elderly to infections, and suggested that the possibility in the upcoming 2025 budget or beyond, they would propose its inclusion in the NIP, specifically tailored for the elderly.
Israel's recent airstrikes on multiple areas in Gaza, during which Israeli fighter jets killed at least 63 people overnight, have heightened the death toll in the ongoing conflict to over 35,000 individuals. Repeatedly throughout the 7-month period of crisis, United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres has called for an urgent humanitarian ceasefire, the unconditional release of all hostages, and an immediate increase in humanitarian aid to the besieged Gaza Strip.
However, US President Joe Biden said on Saturday that a ceasefire could be settled tomorrow if only the militant group Hamas just released the hostages held in Gaza since the commencement of the conflict. In response, Hamas called Biden's statement a setback to the negotiations and said Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had rushed to overturn the talks by launching the Rafah offensive. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, in an interview with NBC, said an all-out Israeli offensive on Rafah would further provoke the displaced Palestinians without effectively eliminating Hamas. Blinken added that he agreed with Netanyahu that Israeli forces had killed more civilians than Hamas militants. Media correspondents, witnesses and medics reported that Israeli bombardments had hit over 150 terror targets over the past day. The genocidal offensive, inclusive of the latest attacks, has resulted in a death toll of at least 35,034 people, mostly women and children.
The number of people killed by flash floods and cold lava flow from a volcano in western Indonesia over the weekend has risen to 41, with 17 more missing. Hours of heavy rain caused large volcanic rocks to roll down one of Indonesia's most active volcanoes into 2 districts on Sumatra Islands Saturday evening, while flooding inundated roads, homes and mosques.
Hujan terjadi di sekitaran Gunung Merapi dan ini mengakibatkan banjir lahar dingin dan banjir bandang di beberapa titik kecamatan di 2 kabupaten tersebut.
Rescuers were searching for 17 still missing, 3 in Agam district and 14 in Tanah Datar, both the worst hit areas of the flood and home to hundreds of thousands of people.
Kita berharap tidak bertambah lagi, tetapi pastinya yang 15 warga kita yang hilang itu kemungkinan juga sudah meninggal. Tetapi kita tidak akan berandai-andai kecuali nanti ada fakta yang ditemukan.
The number of locals evacuated could not be confirmed because officials had encouraged people to evacuate to relatives' places, which are safer than tent shelters in heavy rains.
Those were the updates on Tvs Nightline. I'm Lorenzo Isaac. Thank you for watching and have a good night.